Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd, your provider of belief on demand. Today, we're going to ruin your next movie night.
Lightly. I think that's a fair warning.
And I say that with the utmost affection, but we're about to take a scalpel to something that most people, usually watch through their fingers.
Or from behind a pillow, yeah.
Exactly. We're talking about horror movies.
Specifically, we're talking about the messy ones, the gory ones, the ones that respectable critics usually turn their noses up at.
We're talking about zombies, chainsaw-wielding maniacs, bodies turning inside out. And usually when you cue up something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Dawn of the Dead, you think you know exactly what you're signing up for.
Right. It's a thrill ride.
It's a roller coaster. It's adrenaline. It's a bucket of popcorn and maybe a little bit of regret if you eat too much before bed. It's pure escapism.
That is the standard reading, absolutely. Yeah. It's treated as spectacle. You scream, you laugh, the lights come up, and you go home safe.
But the source material we are deep diving into today, an incredibly dense, fascinating, and frankly disturbing essay titled Proletarian Flesh, Bourgeois Meat, The Economics of Body Horror, argues that we've been watching these movies with our eyes closed.
Or at least with our brains turned off to what's really going on, the real signal.
This essay completely flips the script. It argues that body horror, that specific gruesome subgenre where the human form is mutated, mutilated, or transformed, isn't just about blood and guts.
No.
It's actually economic theory written in gore. It's a materialist critique of capitalism disguised as a slasher flick.
And it sounds like a real stretch at first. I mean, it sounds like some grad student is just overthinking things, right?
The drapes are just blue.
Exactly. But then you start looking at the evidence the author lays out, and you can't unsee it. The argument is essentially this. The monsters we see on screen aren't just random nightmares. They're not just pulled out of thin air.
They're specific.
They are specific byproducts of bank accounts. The essay posits that different economic classes produce different kinds of monsters.
I love that line the author uses. We're going to see how different bank accounts produce different monsters.
It sounds like we're about to decode a secret language that's been hiding in plain sight.
We really are. The source conducts a comparative analysis. It calls it a topography of capitalist anxiety, using three absolute titans of the genre.
The big three.
George Romero, Tobe, and David Cronenberg.
The holy trinity of weird cinema. You can't talk about body horror without them.
You really can't. And the argument is that these three directors, maybe not even consciously, represent three distinct class perspectives. It's all about where the camera is standing in the economic hierarchy.
Okay, so lay out the map for us. If body horror is, say, a building, who is standing where?
Okay, so the source argues that David Cronenberg is looking down from the high-rise tower of the elite.
The penthouse, the boardroom, the sleek laboratory. Then you have George Romero, who is looking across the crowded, chaotic shopping mall of the middle class.
And Tobe.
He's looking up from the slaughterhouse floor.
Wow. Looking up from the slaughterhouse floor.
Yeah.
That is a vivid, nasty image to start us off with.
It is. It's visceral.
So our mission today is to decode these three economies of body horror. We're going to find out why the specific anxieties of the worker, the consumer, and the manager manifest as these literal monsters.
And I want to be clear here. This isn't just some academic gymnastics. The source makes a really compelling case that if you miss this layer of the film, the economic layer, you miss the diagnosis of our current reality.
Our current reality.
This is about how capitalism views your body, your actual physical body, not as a person, but as an asset, as labor, or, in the worst case, as meat.
Well, I definitely don't want to be meat. So let's sharpen the knives and get into part one. We need to set the stage here. The source identifies something it calls the existential itch. What is the specific problem, the nagging human tension that this whole theory is trying to scratch?
It starts with a question of ownership, a really basic one. It's intuitive, right? We all think, this is my body, my hands are my hands, my brain is my brain.
We're in charge here.
Exactly. We assume we have autonomy. I decide where I go. I decide what I do with this vessel.
Sure, I'm the captain of this ship.
But the source argues that under capitalism, that boundary, that nice clean line you draw between your personal body and your economic body, it dissolves. It just evaporates.
How so?
It uses this heavy philosophical phrase.
The body is always already economic?
Always already economic. That sounds like the kind of phrase that costs $40,000 a year in tuition to learn. So let's unpack that. What does that actually mean for me sitting here right now? It means there's no you before the economy gets to you. There's no pure, untouched self. From the moment you're born, your body is potential labor. It's a target for advertising. It's a statistic for insurance companies. It's a data point for marketers.
So you're a commodity from day one.
You're pre-commodified.
Yeah.
And the horror in these films, the source argues, comes from the sudden, violent realization that your flesh doesn't actually belong to you. It never did. It belongs to the system.
So when we see a zombie biting someone or a scientist mutating into a giant fly, it's not just physical violence. You're saying it's a property dispute.
In a way, yes. It's the system repossessing the asset,
Mm-hmm.
or the asset malfunctioning. In Cronenberg's world, your body is a failed investment portfolio. It's a stock that's crashing.
Okay.
In Romero's world, it's undead labor that just keeps mindlessly working shopping even after you die. And in Hooper's world, you are just livestock. You're being processed because you aren't useful as a worker anymore.
That word processed, that's the key, isn't it? It's so dehumanizing. It strips everything personal away.
Completely. And that brings us to the real villain of this whole story. Because if you read the script of these films through this economic lens, the bad guy isn't Leatherface. It isn't the zombies. It isn't the mutant fly.
I'm gonna guess it's not the creepy guy in the mask.
No. Those are just symptoms. They're the fever. The real disease, the true villain, is obsolescence.
Being left behind, being useless.
Yes. Think about the anxiety we all feel right now. AI taking jobs, automation making entire industries redundant, the economy shifting under our feet. That is the fear of obsolescence. And the source argues these films were predicting this dread decades ago.
So let's break that down by director. In Hooper's world, in Texas Chainsaw.
The villain is the technology that made the slaughterhouse worker redundant. The machines, the new automated plants, they took the jobs. So the workers, left with their skills and their tools, became monsters.
And in Romero's world, Dawn of the Dead.
It's the consumer economy itself. It turns people into mindless eaters. You become obsolete as a human being because you lose your agency. You just exist to consume product. You're a walking wallet.
And Cronenberg, the guy in the penthouse.
For Cronenberg, the villain is complexity. The systems we've built, financial systems, scientific systems, technological ones, have become so complex that the human body literally can't keep up. The managerial elite become obsolete because they can no longer control the very things they're supposed to be managing. Their own bodies rebel against the complexity.
That feels incredibly modern. I mean, we're all walking around with supercomputers in our pockets that we don't fully understand, relying on global supply chains we can't see. It's a fragile system.
Extremely.
The source mentions that if we ignore this text, we risk becoming meat. That feels less like a metaphor and more like a direct threat at this point.
It is a threat. The source frames this as a materialist theory of body horror that is urgently relevant, especially now. We're living through this massive transition from industrial capitalism making things with our hands to post-industrial capitalism moving data with our minds.
And that transition leaves people behind.
It leaves bodies behind. If we don't understand how the economy views our bodies, we won't understand why we feel this specific type of anxiety, this deep, gnawing feeling of being displaced or commodified or just out of date.
Okay, I'm sufficiently anxious. Let's get into the engine room. Let's look at the mechanics of how this works in the actual movies. The source sets up a core binary that powers this whole theory.
It does.
Living labor versus dead labor.
This is the engine. It's a Marxist concept originally, but the source applies it to horror in a really, really clever way. Living labor is productive. It creates value. You go to work, you make a chair, you fix a car, you write code, you get paid. You are contributing to the system.
Simple enough. And dead labor.
Dead labor is everything else. It's obsolete labor. It's parasitic, or it's purely consumptive. It takes value from the system, but doesn't create any new value.
And the horror is the moment you cross that line from living to dead.
Exactly. The horror is that moment of transformation. What happens when a worker is no longer living labor, but keeps moving? What happens when their body refuses to die, but their economic purpose is gone? That's the zombie. That's the zombie. That's the cannibal. They are dead labor walking around. They're the residue of the system, the ghosts in the economic machine.
So let's start at the bottom of that high-rise, at the bottom of the ladder, and see what dead labor looks like in the basement. We're going to the slaughterhouse floor. We're talking about Tobe Hooper and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974.
One of the most misunderstood and, I think, brilliant horror films in history.
I remember watching this in college for the first time, and it just felt like pure, unfiltered chaos, just screaming, running, chainsaws. It felt dirty, you know, like you needed to take a shower after watching it.
It is dirty, it's sweaty, it's grimy.
Exactly.
But the source argues it's basically a documentary. It's a documentary about the collapse of the American working class.
We have to talk about the year, 1974. Why is that so important?
It's crucial. You absolutely cannot understand this film without understanding the year. The film was shot during the 1973 oil crisis. The post-war economic boom is officially over. The Bretton Woods system has collapsed. Inflation is skyrocketing. Gas lines are miles long. The source points out that you literally cannot separate the film from that specific economic crisis.
I went back and checked the notes on this, the opening news broadcast in the movie. You know, the stuff that's usually just background noise in horror films. It explicitly mentions unrest in oil-rich regions.
It sets the stage immediately. And think about the plot, the catalyst for everything. Why do the kids get stuck? Why do they even end up at that house?
They run out of gas?
They run out of gas. The van just sputters and dies. They pull into the gas station. The old man says, "Sorry, no gas." The tanks are dry. The horror starts not because a monster attacks them, but because the machinery of the modern world just stops working. The van dies. The economy has failed them.
So they're stranded. Stranded in this rural pocket where the industrial world has basically collapsed on itself. And that's where they find the Sawyer family.
The Sawyers. And this is where the source gets fascinating. It calls what the Sawyers are doing industrial archaeology.
That is a very, very polite way of saying murdering and eating people.
It is. But look at who they are. They aren't just random, motiveless killers. The backstory, which is all there in the film's details, is that they are slaughterhouse workers. Or they were.
Right.
But the local slaughterhouse laid them off. Why? Because of automation. A new, more efficient plant opened up. A machine does the killing now. The bolt gun replaced the sledgehammer.
There's that amazing line from the hitchhiker character. He's that twitchy, unsettling guy they pick up early in the film. He says, "The old way with the sledge died better."
He's nostalgic. He's literally nostalgic for a better way of killing. He's talking about killing cattle with a sledgehammer like it's an art form. He's a craftsman, an artisan of death. And this new technology took his job, his identity. He feels replaced, and he's furious about it.
So what you have here is a family of skilled laborers with no factory to work in. They have the tools, they have the know-how.
Right. So what do? They bring the work home. The source argues the Sawyers aren't evil in a metaphysical sense. They aren't demons. They don't have some grand evil plan.
They're entrepreneurs.
They aren't entrepreneurs. They are adapting to market conditions.
They're pivoting. It's a gruesome startup.
It's a gruesome pivot, but yes.
Yeah.
That's the logic. If you can't process cattle anymore because the slaughterhouse closed, you process the only other meat that's available, the tourists who wander onto your property. It's the logic of cannibalism as survival economics.
Let's talk about Leatherface, because he's the icon here. Big guy, chainsaw, that horrifying mask made of human skin.
The source makes a really profound point about that mask. We usually think, oh, he's wearing a skin mask to be scary, or maybe to hide a disfigurement or to hide his identity. But look close with the details.
What details?
There are actually 3 masks he wears in the film. But the main one, the killing mask, has short brown hair. He wears a tie with his dinner jacket. He wears a butcher's apron over his clothes.
He looks like a butcher.
He looks like a butcher who's trying to look presentable for his work. The source argues the mask is effectively PPE, personal protective equipment. It's a work mask. He is dressing for the job he no longer has.
That is tragically sad. I never thought of Leatherface as a tragic figure.
It is. It's what the source calls class nostalgia. He's putting on his uniform to perform the labor that has been automated out of existence. He doesn't know how to be anything other than a butcher, so he just keeps butchering, even when the context and the material are gone.
So when he's chasing Sally through the woods with the chainsaw, in his mind, he's just clocking in, doing his job.
He's doing his job. He's clearing the floor. He's terrified of these strangers, these contaminants, entering his workspace. He's protecting his means of production.
There's another character the analysis highlights, the grandfather. The really old, decrepit one who looks like a mummy.
The grandfather. He represents the pre-industrial past. The legend of the family is that he was the best at the slaughterhouse, the most efficient. He could kill a cow with a single hit of the hammer. He's the hero of their family history.
But now, he's completely useless.
He's totally parasitic. He can't even hold a hammer.
That scene at the dinner table where they try to help him hit the girl with the hammer, it's so awful.
It's pathetic, right? The hammer just keeps falling out of his desiccated hands. He's too weak. He's ancient. So what does he do instead?
He sucks the blood from her finger.
He sucks the blood from her finger. It's repulsive, but economically, it's deeply significant. The source says this represents the horror of the working class being forced back to pre-industrial, almost vampiric forms of labor. And ultimately, because they have no productivity left, they can't swing the hammer, they begin literally consuming the young generation.
It's intergenerational economic cannibalism.
Exactly. The old devour the young, because the economy provides no other way for them to survive.
So, Hooper gives us the horror of the displaced worker, the person the economy threw in the trash and left to rot. Now, let's move up the ladder. Or maybe across the parking lot. Let's talk about George Romero and the view from the mall.
This is the shift. We're moving from the 1970s recession into the 1980s consumer boom. We're moving from the factory to the mall.
Dawn of the Dead, 1978.
A masterpiece of social satire.
The premise is simple. 4 survivors barricade themselves inside a massive empty shopping mall while a horde of zombies surrounds it.
And the central question of the movie, the one that unlocks everything, is why do the zombies come to the mall? They don't need shoes, they don't need TVs, they're dead.
The movie actually answers this directly. One of the characters, Fran, says it's some kind of instinct memory of what they used to do. She says this was an important place in their lives.
That is the ultimate critique of consumerism, isn't it? Even after your brain rots, even after you lose your soul, your very humanity, the instinct to shop remains. You are a shopper before you are a person.
The source calls this alienation, a classic Marxist term.
Right. The zombie is the consumer reduced to pure consumption. But it's also the worker reduced to pure repetitive labor. They just keep walking, keep grabbing, keep moving. They are on an endless, pointless loop.
But here's where the analysis gets really interesting for me. It's not just humans versus zombies. The source breaks down the groups of people inside the movie into distinct class categories. It's a class war among the living, with the zombies as this shambling backdrop.
Correct. Look at the 4 survivors.
Oh.
You have a TV executive, a TV producer, a SWAT officer, and a helicopter pilot.
These aren't factory workers. They're not getting their hands dirty.
No. They represent what the source calls the professional-managerial class, PMC. These are the experts. They are the people who manage things, who give orders.
The white-collar tier.
Exactly. And what do they do when they get to the mall? Do they go on a rampage? Do they destroy it? No.
They organize it, they secure the doors, they inventory the goods, they build a fake wall to hide their luxury apartment, they are trying to manage the apocalypse, they are trying to reestablish the system of ownership and private property.
They're playing house in the wreckage of capitalism. They're trying to make it cozy.
But then who shows up at the end to ruin it all?
The biker gang.
The bikers.
The bikers. And the source identifies them as the lumpen proletariat.
Okay, we're going to put a pin in that term for the concept decoder later, but give us the rough idea. Who are these guys in the social structure?
They are the people who are totally excluded from wage labor. They don't work in the factory and they don't manage the office. They are the outcasts, the criminals, the drifters. They exist completely outside the polite economy.
And their behavior is totally different from the PMC survivors.
Completely. The survivors want to preserve the mall as a private paradise. The bikers raid the mall to smash it. They throw pies in the zombies' faces. They drive their motorcycles through the aisles, knocking over displays. They destroy the commodities they can't own.
It's nihilistic destruction. It's not about survival for them.
It is. The source notes that the survivors are horrified, not just because the bikers are violent, but because the bikers are breaking the rules of consumption. They are disrespecting the goods. They are smashing the temple of capital.
And the zombies are just caught in the middle of this class war.
The zombies are the mass. And this is a key distinction the source makes between Romero and Cronenberg. In Romero's films, the horror is mass horror.
What does that mean specifically, as opposed to what Cronenberg does?
It means the zombies are terrifying because they are identical. They are interchangeable. They are, for all practical purposes, infinite. If you shoot one, 10 more appear. They're a tide.
Just like the workforce on an assembly line.
Just like the proletariat. If one worker dies on the line and another replaces him, you are replaceable. That is the horror, the slow, dawning realization that your individuality doesn't matter to the system. You are just a number, a cog, or a corpse.
The source also tracks the evolution of the zombie through Romero's later films. It says they actually gain class consciousness, which sounds, insane for a zombie movie.
It sounds wild, but watch the progression. It's there. In Dawn of the Dead, they are just mindless shoppers. But then you get to Day of the Dead in '85.
The one in the bunker.
The bunker, yeah. You have scientists trying to train them, like Bub. They're being studied. They're a surplus population that the state, represented by the military, is trying to manage. But by Land of the Dead in 2005, things have changed.
That's the one with the luxury tower, Fiddler's Green.
Yes, Fiddler's Green, the rich, the bourgeoisie, live in this gleaming high-rise, drinking champagne, completely insulated, while the poor live in the slums below. And the zombies, they start to organize.
There's that character, Big Daddy.
Big Daddy, a zombie who was a gas station attendant in life. He still wears the jumpsuit. He still holds the gas nozzle like a tool. He starts teaching the other zombies how to use weapons, how to think tactically. He leads a revolutionary march on the city.
So the zombies become the heroes, or at least the revolutionaries.
In a strict Marxist sense, yes. The source argues that the zombies overthrow the bourgeoisie not out of malice or evil, but because they must consume to exist. It's capitalist expansion literalized into flesh-eating. The market must always expand. The zombies must always eat. If the rich hoard all the resources in their tower, the zombies will eventually come for them.
It's not a monster movie anymore. It's a prophecy about wealth inequality.
It's a revolution with better makeup effects.
So Romero shows us the horror of the mass consumer and the eventual uprising of the mass worker. Now let's take the elevator all the way to the top floor. We are leaving the mall. We are checking into the penthouse. David Cronenberg.
The view from the medical tower.
Now we are in the realm of the managerial elite. The doctors, the scientists, the financial wizards.
These are the people who are supposed to be in charge. They live in the clean, sterile, high-tech world. White walls, chrome surfaces, computer screens.
So what are they afraid of? They have money, they have security, they aren't going to get eaten by hillbillies or a zombie horde.
They aren't afraid of the outside world at all. They're insulated from it. They're afraid of the inside. In Cronenberg's world, the monster isn't a zombie or a cannibal. The monster is failed management.
Failed management of what? The company.
Of the complex systems they're supposed to control, and specifically, the most complex system of all, their own biology, their own bodies.
So in Cronenberg's movies, the horror always comes from within. It's an inside job.
Precisely. The source contrasts this sharply with Romero. Romero is mass horror. Cronenberg is individualized horror. It's the intensely personal fear that your own body will betray your professional competence, that your flesh will undermine your intellect.
Let's look at the classic example, The Fly, Jeff Goldblum.
Seth Brundle. He is a genius, a brilliant scientist on the verge of the biggest discovery in human history. He invents teleportation. He's the ultimate knowledge worker.
But he makes a mistake, a stupid, drunken, emotional mistake.
He makes a tiny managerial error, a procedural oversight. He doesn't check the data. He doesn't run the diagnostics one more time. A single housefly gets in the telepod with him. His mutation isn't caused by a zombie biting him or a curse. It's caused by his own oversight.
It's a workplace accident, but he's the boss and the only employee.
He's the expert. And the horror is watching his expertise fail to stop his own biological collapse. He tries to manage the mutation. He keeps video logs, like a scientist. He analyzes his falling teeth. He tries to solve his own decay like it's a math problem he can fix.
He can't, though.
He can't. His mind, his expertise is powerless against his own flesh. The source calls this the individualization of risk.
Explain that. What does it mean?
That is a key neoliberal concept. In the old days, the Fordist days of the factory, if the plant closed, everyone suffered together. It was a collective risk. In the modern post-Fordist economy, you are responsible for your own success and your own failure. If you get sick, if you mutate, if you fail, it's on you, your problem.
That hits hard. It's that modern anxiety of, I need to optimize my performance. Biohacking, intermittent fasting, tracking your sleep on an app. We are all trying to manage our bodies like they're personal assets.
And Cronenberg shows us what happens when that asset crashes spectacularly.
Yeah.
The source discusses another, maybe more abstract film, Cosmopolis.
This is the one with Robert Pattinson as the billionaire asset manager in the back of a limo.
Eric Packer.
Yeah.
His limo is his mobile office. It's a bubble. He is completely insulated from the world. It's soundproof. It has screens everywhere. He's moving through the chaos of New York, but he's not in New York. He's just looking at data streams.
But he's obsessed with his health, with his body.
And you have a doctor give him a full physical checkup inside the moving limo. And there's this recurring bizarre detail. His asymmetrical prostate.
His what?
His prostate is slightly asymmetrical.
Why does that matter?
Medically, it doesn't. It's benign. But to him, it's an anomaly. It's a data point he can't control in the system of his own body. The source argues that his body is being treated as an asset class. The asymmetry of his prostate mirrors the asymmetry of information in the market that eventually destroys his financial empire. He misses one bit of data, and the whole thing comes down.
So his body failing and his portfolio failing are the same event, just on different scales?
They are perfectly mirrored. He loses all his money, and he loses his mind. He actively seeks death at the end of the film because he wants to feel risk. In a world of pure financial abstraction where everything is just numbers on a screen, the only way to feel something real is to be physically destroyed.
That is bleak. The billionaire who has everything but feels nothing, so he wants annihilation.
Exactly. But there's one more Cronenberg example the source loves, and it's arguably the grossest one. Shivers.
Shivers. This is an earlier one, right? From the 70s.
1975. And it's set in this sterile luxury high-rise called Starliner Towers. It is explicitly described in the film as a self-sufficient community. It has its own grocery store, a gym, a doctor's office. It's designed so you never have to leave. You never have to interact with the poor people on the street below.
A perfect gated community in the sky.
The ultimate bourgeois fantasy. And what happens? A parasite gets loose. A genetically engineered parasite that was created by the resident scientists to get this replace organ functions. It was supposed to be a medical miracle. Another triumph of management.
Another management failure. I'm sensing a theme.
A massive one. The parasite is also a powerful aphrodisiac, and it's sexually transmitted.
Right.
And it turns these aloof, cold yuppies, as the source calls them, into a heaving mammalian scrum.
A heaving mammalian scrum. That is quite an image.
It's the bourgeoisie cannibalizing itself through pure, uncontrollable desire. The horror here is the loss of distinction, of class. These people paid a fortune to be separate, to be clean, to be above the masses. The parasite drags them all back down into raw, messy biology. It erases their class privilege by turning them into animals.
So if we recap this whole section, Hooper gives us the horror of the worker being thrown out of the factory and picking up a knife to survive. Romero gives us the horror of the consumer mindlessly shopping until they eventually eat the rich. And Cronenberg gives us the horror of the CEO realizing his own biology is a bad investment that's about to default.
That is the engine room. It's a perfect map of the anxiety of capitalism from the very bottom to the very top.
Okay, this is heavy stuff. And the source throws around some terminology that might be a little intimidating if you haven't, brushed up on your political theory since undergrad. So I want to move to our concept decoder. We've got 4 terms from the text that we need to translate for a cocktail party context.
Let's do it. Make it accessible.
First one. We mentioned it briefly with the bikers in Dawn of the Dead. Lumpen proletariat.
Right. It's a mouthful. Sounds very academic.
How do I explain this to my friends without sounding like a 19th century German professor?
Think of the lumpen proletariat as the dropout class.
The dropout class. I like that.
In the classic Marxist definition, you have the bourgeoisie, the owners, and you have the proletariat, the workers, the people with jobs in the system. They have a role. The lumpen proletariat are the people who have fallen out of that system entirely. Beggars, career criminals, scavengers, drifters.
So they aren't working class because they literally aren't working.
Exactly. They're the ragged class is the literal translation. The source quote describes them perfectly as those excluded from both wage labor and consumption, reduced to pure predation. They don't buy and they don't earn. They just take.
So in a modern context, what would that look like?
You might think of the black market economy, or populations that are completely marginalized and ignored by the state. In the movies, they are the agents of pure chaos. They don't want to take over the factory. They want to burn it down because it has no use for them.
Okay, term number 2, Professional-Managerial class, or PMC.
This is a big buzzword on Twitter these days, so it's a good one to know. The cocktail party definition. The white-collar experts.
The people with degrees on the wall and a LinkedIn profile.
Yes. They don't own the factories. They aren't the billionaires, the true bourgeoisie. But they aren't the ones on the assembly line turning the screws either. They are the middle layer. The doctors, the media producers, the middle managers, the HR reps, the consultants. They boss people around and manage the systems.
And in the horror context of these films,
They are the ones with the most to lose in terms of status and control. The source says, doctors, scientists, and media producers watching their bodies betray their professional competence. They are terrified of losing control because their entire identity is based on being in control of information and systems.
got it. Term number 3, Fordism versus post-Fordism. This sounds like car talk.
It starts with cars. Fordism is the old assembly line world. Think of Henry Ford. Big factories, stable jobs for life, mass production of identical products. You work at the plant for 40 years, you get a pension and a gold watch. That's the world of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or rather, the world that is dying in that movie. The Sawyers are victims of the end of Fordism.
And post-Fordism.
That's the new world we live in now. The world of malls, service jobs, the stock market, the gig economy. You don't make things. You move money or data. It's flexible, it's globalized, but it's incredibly unstable.
So Romero spans the transition.
Exactly. The source positions it perfectly. Hooper is the crisis of the factory,
Yeah.
Fordism. Romero is the shift to the mall, early post-Fordism. And Cronenberg is the fully financialized, abstract, post-Fordist world where your body is just another data set.
Okay, last term. This one is implied throughout the text, but it's crucial. Reification.
Ooh, the big one, the really philosophical one.
What is reification? Break it down for me.
The simplest way to put it is, it's when a person becomes a thing, or when a human relationship becomes a transaction. It's the process of turning something living and abstract into something dead and concrete.
Can you give me the zombie example from the source?
The zombie is the ultimate example of reification. The source says, the zombie is the consumer reduced to pure consumption. A human being with a history, with thoughts and feelings and relationships, has been turned into a walking mouth, a machine for eating. They've become a thing that eats.
So when I'm scrolling on my phone for 3 hours, just looking at ads and videos and not really thinking, am I being reified in that moment?
In a sense, yes. According to this theory, you're being reduced to a set of eyeballs for advertisers. Your attention is the product. You're becoming a component of the machine rather than a user of it. The horror is that moment of realizing you've become an object in someone else's business plan.
That is genuinely terrifying. Okay, we've got the drama, the logic, and the vocabulary. Now, I want to bring this all together. We've been talking about these directors separately, but the source suggests they are all part of one big single structure.
Yes. Let's try to visualize this. This is the aha moment, the part that makes it all click.
The master analogy.
Imagine capitalism as a giant high-rise building, the skyscraper, like in the movie High Rise.
Okay, I'm picturing it like Die Hard or something, a huge sealed-off tower.
At the very, very top, in the sterile penthouse, you have David Cronenberg's characters, the doctors, the financiers. It's sleek, it's modern, it's hermetically sealed from the grime below.
And their specific horror.
Their horror is that the AC unit breaks, or the internal plumbing fails and backs up, or the smart home security system locks them in. They are terrified that the complex internal systems keeping them comfortable will malfunction. It's all internal anxiety.
Okay, so that's the penthouse. What's happening below that?
You go down a few floors, and you get to the lobby in the mall. That's George Romero's world. It's crowded. It's chaotic. Everyone is fighting over goods. The zombies are there. The shoppers are there. The bikers are there. They are fighting over who gets to own what, while the building itself is slowly crumbling around them.
And the basement. What's in the basement?
The basement, or the boiler room, the sublevel, is Tobe Hooper's world. It's dark. It's hot. It smells like gasoline and blood and rust. This is where the actual machinery is, the pipes, the furnaces, the generators. And down there, you have Leatherface.
And he's doing the dirty work that keeps the building running, or used to.
He's dealing with the rusty pipes and the discarded machinery, and he's turning into a monster because the building management at the penthouse cut his job. They automated his position. He's down there screaming because no one needs him to shovel coal anymore. But he doesn't know how to do anything else.
That puts it all in perfect perspective. Body horror isn't just gross, it's a map of where you live in this building.
Exactly. The monster you fear, the horror you experience, depends entirely on which floor you live on.
There is a quote in the source that I think sums this entire thing up perfectly. We called it the mic drop quote.
It's from the conclusion of the essay, and it's a heavy one. The author writes, "This is the grim meat-hook reality of capitalism. Not that it consumes us, but that it consumes itself, leaving behind only the residue of its own violence, the masks we wear to continue performing work that no longer exists."
Wow, the masks we wear to continue performing work that no longer exists. That haunts me. It makes me think about how many of us are just play acting our roles, going through the motions, hoping the system doesn't notice we're obsolete.
It's the fear that we are all just Leatherface in some way. We're just putting on a tie instead of a skin mask, going to a job that might not need to exist tomorrow, hoping the chainsaw doesn't run out of gas.
Which brings us to the final image the source leaves us with, the ending of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's one of the most famous endings in all of cinema. Sally, the final girl, the survivor, she escapes. She jumps in the back of a passing pickup truck. She's laughing and screaming hysterically, covered in blood, and Leatherface is left behind on the road.
And he does that dance, that terrible, beautiful dance.
The chainsaw dance.
Yeah.
He swings the saw around in the sunrise. It's this explosion of impotent rage. It's beautiful, and it's terrifying, but the source points out a crucial detail we usually miss in the sound design.
Yes.
The chainsaw is sputtering, it's dying, it's running out of fuel. The film started with a national gas shortage, and it ends with the primary weapon running out of gas.
So the horror isn't that the violence goes on forever?
No, that's not it. The horror is that the violence runs out of gas. The fuel is finite. The system can't sustain itself. When the machine stops, what are we left with?
Yes.
Just the working class, standing alone on a deserted road, holding tools they can't use anymore, screaming at the sun.
That is a profound place to leave it. We think of horror as the presence of a monster, but maybe the real horror is the absence of a future. The machine just stopping.
That's the absurdity we deal with here.
Well, on that cheery note, this has been a deep dive into the economics of getting chopped up into little pieces.
Yeah.
I will never watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre the same way again.
Nor should you. It's a documentary about the 1970s American economy, just with more screaming.
Listeners, thank you for tuning in to Doctorates of the Absurd. We hope this gave you some new and maybe slightly terrifying lenses to view your favorite nightmares. Keep your skepticism sharp and your belief on demand.
And remember, check your class position before you check under the bed.